Welcome back to another episode. And 2 days ago, we mentioned how there might be some bigger swings coming, and it looks like we're getting some swinging back and forth. But if you're a part of my Patreon, I just wanted to take you through this real quick because yesterday we were posting how there was a 30-minute divergence, and we're just noticing on the SPY how that is playing out. We saw that selling off a little bit, and then we get a bounce, and we're starting to trail off again, but it looks like we're about to bounce higher. So later on this morning, we actually mentioned the fact that on Tesla, we do not trade around those earnings because even with divergences, you still need that good news. And with earnings, it really is a 50-50 shot. And that's where I've been hurt by this in the past. And I encourage you to kind of put it into your thinking. Like, I just won't trade around earnings because I don't know the exact numbers that are going to come out. Now, the last post I did want to talk about was an update with the SPY as well, but this is overall with the volatility. Okay, so the volatility here, we're noticing that there is a slight divergence, okay? And this was at, let's see, 6 hours ago, okay? So around 10 o'clock. I actually mentioned that the divergence on the VIX was hinting that we could see some kind of momentum dying out in the VIX, meaning we could get some kind of bounce in the SPY. And what happened towards the end of the day? Well, we ended up getting that bounce, okay? So this is what we can look for in intraday, but we're gonna go into, right now, the technical side. So we're gonna go into the technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, NVDA, and AMD, all right? Let's get into it. Paying attention to those subtle divergences in a market at like this, especially when we're up in that area that we overall have been talking about for a couple of days, this is our danger zone. And even though we're near our danger zone, it doesn't mean that we can't see another push higher, okay? We are still within positive territory. This divergence here was not able to fully curl over the 2 hour, which is what you're looking for, not able to get into negative territory yet. So what does this mean? This means that as far as right now, we have to treat this as some kind of consolidation, maybe some kind of little head and shoulders, maybe just some kind of flagging at this point, and we have to pay attention to potential upsides. So really, as of tomorrow, I'm going to be looking for this monthly expected move and looking for some kind of triple divergence. That triple divergence would allow us to get really close to that center line and get us into negative territory. Sorry, I'm burping. It was my first day off in a long time. Had a good lunch and got my hair cut, so hopefully you guys like that. But we're looking for these divergences to get close to negative territory, and that's when some bad news, even if it's a little bit of bad news, can have an overreaction, okay? So we're seeing this build up. It looks like we want to break through some of these higher levels up here, and maybe we do want to get outside of that weekly range, maybe even outside of the monthly range before the end of the week. And then we have to pay attention to this because these weekly ranges, we land back within those 68% of the time. So if we get excited tomorrow and get outside of these, we still have that 68% chance to land back within these purple lines here, right, by Friday close. We can see a similar story on the Qs as well. We have a divergence between these levels. We have that divergence on the MACD. We have that divergence on the RSI at the same time. So we're expecting some kind of pullback, but really, look at this. This looks like flagging, okay? This looks like flagging at this point, and we might have one more push left in this move. So this is where we really need to pay attention because the Qs are in its danger zone, right? Outside of the monthly, going up to probably the weekly, going to be outside of the monthly most likely tomorrow with this bounce if it comes to fruition, with some of that news that's coming out tomorrow and things like that. So we have to pay attention to it. And overall, what we're looking for is if we get that bounce, does this confirm as a triple divergence on the 30-minute? With that confirmation, we would be very close to that center line. And it would be a very good probability that we're about to start a negative trend going into next week, which makes total sense, okay? When we think about it, it makes total sense because this is all the options market have priced in for January. We're approaching the end of January, and therefore, if we do get outside of this, we do have that 68% chance to land back in this within this yellow line here. The last thing I wanted to say on the Qs is really we just need to be paying attention to January 31st as well. Okay, January 31st is going to be a big day for the market. I would definitely start marking that on your calendar and just be ready for some big swings when that day comes, because I believe we're still pricing in way too many rate cuts and the market is going like this while TLT is still coming down, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Be careful around January 31st. We could be getting the last bull trap for 2024. Now, Apple, I'm a little worried about going into tomorrow because we have this stair step, this climbing up a cliff, if you will, and a lot of the time we do like to see plunges down from there. So really, the only thing to the bullish side I would be paying attention to is if we use this little level in here, this support zone in here, as some support to trampoline higher. We know that Apple likes to burst through a zone, come back, test it, and then head higher. So I'd be open to that. But if we do get some good news on the hourly here, we could see some kind of divergence by the end of the week. So this actually could push even higher, give us another point of reference, and maybe give us a nice little divergence here to tell us, hey, there's some weakening in momentum here. And if we do get some bad news, we're going to be pretty close to that center line. Okay, we're going to be close to creating some kind of, or going into some kind of negative trend very soon with some bad news. For Amazon, I wanted to talk about a 2-hour, okay? So I said that this had a good chance of going higher, right? Left, head, maybe a right shoulder. And it looks like right now we're trying to go higher. You're getting that consolidation. We can see one more push in this, okay? Even though you're looking down here and we see some kind of triple divergence across the board, we see that on the RSI at the same time. Until this really confirms as that triple divergence and gets into negative territory, I'm not going to be convinced, okay? Because unless we get some kind of bad news with it, I really don't see this turning around. Now, we do want to pay attention to when that confirms, because if that does confirm, it's a good sign that something bad is coming around the corner, because momentum is dying out to the upside and we're waiting on some news before we want to head higher or lower. And with the momentum dying out, there's a good chance that that's going to shift into a negative trend. So be looking for this trend to remain in this negative territory. If there is some kind of pullback, make sure that we're not still in positive territory when that curls back up, because that could just be some kind of minor pullback, and then we end up seeing that extension maybe all the way into January 31st. Tesla, the main thing to say here is we've been talking about this zone, we've been talking about those weekly ranges, we've been talking about the divergences. You have tons of divergences down here. You had it on the RSI at the same time, but this is why we do not trade around earnings. I noticed some of you did like my post when I sent it out saying this is why we don't trade around earnings, because you don't know what's coming out. Sure, the momentum is dying out. It looks like a bounce could come, but I made sure to say in my video 2 days ago, hey, I'm not trading around these earnings, okay? I am personally out because I've been hurt by it before. I actually took a trade with Zillow a couple years ago, and I traded around earnings. I saw some big divergences. It got into positive territory for a moment, and I said, hey, it looks like this is maybe going to be a good earnings, so I'm going to do it. Guess what? It went the wrong way on me, and I lost 14% in the first 10 minutes of the day. I don't want you guys to have to go through that. If you did have to go through it this time, okay, that's all right. Reload and use it as a learning experience, okay? Use it to be like, hey, I am not going to trade around earnings anymore because I don't know what exact numbers are going to come out. And sometimes even when we get good numbers, it is still a bad reaction because of the forward guidance. This is just a lesson in here about Tesla that we could stay away from the earnings and save ourselves a lot of trouble and a lot of emotional turmoil. NVIDIA, we were talking about what do? We like to go up, consolidate sideways, go up, consolidate sideways. And then we had this big push and I said, well, we need to go sideways to head up again. Look at that. We head sideways a little bit. We get that next push. All right. So we do have divergences up here, some wonky ones across the board on the hourly, but the overall thing is they're there. They're waiting for that bad news. So this can continue with even this consolidation here to head a little bit higher. Don't think it can. This is still very bullish in the market until we get some bad news to really flip the momentum around and get us into that negative territory. NVIDIA is bullish until we get some negative news. This thing could go up all the way up until January 31st. When there is some kind of hint at, or at least some guidance on how many rate cuts there are going to be. And the Fed does not play around too much. They said 75. We're still pricing in 125, I believe, at this point, which just means we're overzealous in this market. And if this wants to head higher, the drop could be pretty heavy. And just another tip here, how big that drop could be. The monthly expected move is about 540. Okay, so this is where that monthly line is, and 68% of the time we do land back within that. So if we do start to see selling come in, it could be pretty dramatic in NVIDIA because it's getting a bunch of money piled into it. Be very careful up in this area right now, okay? Be very, very careful. It might be a good time to, even if you want to hold it as an investor, take a little bit off of the table. AMD, a pretty similar story, but for this one, you do have the monthly ranges up for you, and we do have the weekly ranges up for you as well. Now, you're going to notice similar to NVIDIA, right? We go up, we stair step sideways, we go up, we see the little bit of a pullback, we go up, we go sideways, we go up. So we can see another push higher here. You do have some divergences at these highs up here on the hourly, but we're not very close to that center line, okay? We need it to get close to that center line to start that negative trend. Now you are in a danger zone. Very cool how we're reacting off of those weekly ranges. Okay, we literally touched it to the penny. Okay, we touched it to the penny, and then we see that selling come in. Now, this isn't dramatic selling or anything like that. This could be another scenario like this one, where then we see another push higher. So I just want you to pay attention to this, but this would be a good area, kind of like NVIDIA, to take some off the table. You have nothing to lose up here. If you were investing in this move, you knew, hey, we got into positive territory. We saw, even if you waited for the second curl up, here's your second curl up, and then you see all this profit come in. You're not losing anything by taking some profit here. You're really, really not. And this will just keep you, within profit before a big news event like January 31st. And lastly, on AMD, I like my divergences on the 2-hour when I'm looking for that daily to roll back over, and you do have a slight divergence on the MACD, and you do see that divergence right now on the RSI. So this could be our first hint that there is going to be some weakness in AMD, and if there is any kind of bad news that comes out, we could actually see AMD drop pretty solid. You notice that the monthly expected move was 162.03, and we're sitting at 180.33 as of close today. So there could be a sudden drop coming as of next week. To get back within this zone, 68% of the time we do land back within these yellow lines. So that is something to really pay attention to. It doesn't have to happen, right? But we could get some bad news throughout the weekend. We could get some bad news Monday, Tuesday, or even Wednesday that really makes this thing sell off. And I just don't want you guys caught up in that mess. As you can see, the signal that we've been paying attention to, SPY actually making that new all-time high, while TLT is actually dropping lower. Okay, so TLT is still holding this sell signal, if you will, and that is something to pay attention to. Either the bond traders are wrong or the market is wrong, the dumb money versus smart money. And overall, most of the time, the smart money's right, okay? Normally, if there's going to be, say, good news with the Fed, we'll just look back a little bit. The last time that we saw this was somewhere over here. We saw the SPY was actually, from this point actually heading up a little bit while the TLT was dropping like this. This is overall more moving sideways before some news. This is selling before some news, okay? And these are the smart traders, so we have to pay attention to it. Now, if TLT does want to head higher, we're going to see this cross, right? We're going to see this cross down here on the MACD. It's going to be in positive territory, which tells us what? We have a chance of testing this high or going to make a new one. So that's what we can look forward to on the bullish side of TLT. The bearish side, if you want to use that, is we just continue down into this negative territory, which means those yields continue to go up, which also means that the overall market, tech stocks, we are going to see them sell off. VIX, I didn't necessarily get my 30-minute divergence, but we were just pointing out right up in here how there are some divergences, but I wouldn't bank on them. I really told you guys that I thought we were going to come and test this level one more time or even go to 12.12 if that breaks. Guess what? We tested that level one more time. We see that volatility come back in. Now, this was on my Patreon. You have that divergence on the 30-minute up here, but I want you to see it on the 15-minute because it's just a little more clear, okay? Let's zoom into this. You're noticing there's a 15-minute divergence, okay? We mentioned bigger swings could start to come. So this just tells us, hey, we do have these highs, we have some divergence, it's decently close to negative territory. We could see some kind of bounce in the near future. We could see some kind of upward move, all right? So we want to pay attention to this, especially going into tomorrow because this is a 15-minute chart. I'm burping again. This is a 15-minute chart, so we need to look for this in the near future. If this wants to drop down a little bit and curl back up, we could get another point of reference, right? Get that triple divergence, which would get us even closer to that center line down here, okay? So it looks like the VIX might want to, pull back a little bit before heading higher, but it's good if you were paying attention. We did get that test of this lower level. Now we're seeing volatility come back in, and now it looks like we could see some green as of tomorrow. All right, so the main takeaway here is, yes, we saw a little bit of volatility come in, but this looks like we might just be flagging to head a little bit higher. So be looking out for a 30-minute divergence on the SPY because that could be a good signal that the momentum is really dying out and all we need is a piece of bad news. And that's when we'll be looking for January 31st when we do get that Fed rate decision. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, do all the good stuff, keep commenting, and please, if you want some further insight throughout your day or those weekly ranges, look at my Patreon, all right? I hope you guys have all the luck in the world trading tomorrow, and I wish you guys have a good night, all right? Peace.